Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get you top stories from India and the region. I'm Tanvi Taneja, and for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague from Washington, D.C., Caroline Malone. Hi, Caroline. Good evening from New Delhi.
Hi there, Tanvi. It's 10 a.m. here in Washington, D.C. and 3 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, we have more on Vice President Kamala Harris's bid to be the Democratic nominee for president. We're live in Washington, but first, the headlines.
India's Economic Survey 2024-25 projects real GDP growth between 6.5% to 7%. The Indian economy resilient despite global challenges. Joe Biden's decision to drop out sets an entirely different White House race. Kamala Harris seeks to earn and win the nomination after Biden's endorsement raises nearly $50 million in donations in less than a day. And in Bangladesh, protests pause after the top court scrapped job quotas on Sunday. Indefinite curfew remains. Students demand release of protest leaders amid widespread disruption. So up first, news from New Delhi. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman tabled the Economic Survey 2024 in Parliament on Monday. The survey projected India's real GDP growth by 8.2% in financial year 2024, exceeding 8% mark in 3 out of 4 quarters of fiscal year 2024. Later, during the question hour in the lower house of Indian Parliament, Nirmala Sitharaman said that a lot of steps have been taken on ease of doing business, including setting up of a central processing system.
The most important part of this is zero fee for incorporation has been brought in for companies with authorized capital of up to 15 lakhs, meaning small companies which have small capitals with which they start their business, there is no fee charged. These are as a matter of ease of doing business, other than simultaneously acting on reducing the pendency in the courts. The most important question which Sri Jagadambika Pal raised about the SEBI, sir, I want to underline the fact that the reforms which have been brought by the SEBI, particularly in timelines which have been given for settlement of claims, is a remarkable step taken forward, and our markets have also been, and companies have also benefited from it. In fact, we are far ahead of the very many other countries where companies law operate. They are still not able to settle claims within even T+6, T+5 or T+4. We have even come to T+1, which is effectively being run today.
Later, Chief Economic Advisor of India, Dr. V. Ananth Nageshwaran, held a press conference in which he mentioned that India's GDP is projected to grow between 6.5% to 7% in fiscal year 2024-25.
The average growth rate in the last 3 years up to March 24 has been around 8%, and as we write in the survey, real GDP is 20% above the pre-pandemic level. And investment is being driven by not only by public sector capital formation. Both union and state governments have clearly been spearheading the capital formation. But let me also tell you that private capex has been growing. Private capex has recovered.
Dr. Nageshwaran also emphasized that retail inflation has declined to 5.4% in fiscal year 2024 after averaging at 6.7% in the last financial year.
Inflationary pressures under control. In the previous 3 years, the deviation of inflation from the target of 4% is the lowest in India, and the headline inflation rate is coming well within the band and should come to below 5% in the current financial year. And of course, you all know that the core inflation is running well below 4%. Both a slew of administrative measures and monetary policy combined to make sure that inflation never got out of hand. And compared to many other nations, the fact that we had a very small deviation from our target was facilitated by the proactive both fiscal and non-fiscal administrative measures and monetary policy measures taken.
Reacting on the economic survey, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that it highlights the prevailing strengths of our Indian economy and showcases the outcomes of various reforms of the government of India that it has brought. He added that it also identifies areas for further growth and progress as India moves towards building a Viksit Bharat, that is developed India. Earlier, the Prime Minister addressed media before the start of the budget session in New Delhi. He reiterated the pride in the fact that after a gap of 60 years, a government has come to power for the third consecutive term. Prime Minister Modi said that the budget is a milestone budget for the Amrit Kal.
हमें 5 साल का जो अवसर मिला है, आज का बजट हमारे उन 5 साल के कार्य की दिशा भी तय करेगा और ये बजट 2047 जब आजादी के 100 साल होंगे तब विकसित भारत का जो हमारा सपना है उस सपने को पूरा करने की मजबूत नींव वाला बजट लेकर के हम कल देश के सामने आएंगे.
So following the release of the Economic Survey 2024, the Confederation of Indian Industry, CII's Director General Chandrajit Banerjee called the survey practical and he said that it remained cautiously optimistic.
The survey has been very practical, very calculative, which is very important in the growth projection. I think it's remained optimistic, but yet also very cautiously optimistic is what I would think, and correctly so, because we need to be prepared for any headwinds that come to us from the global point of view. But I do think that we could achieve a near 8% growth if we are able to address some of the issues of concern which has been well brought out in the economic survey.
So India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will present the Union Budget 2024 on Tuesday. Indian share markets expectations from it revolve around several key areas, with investors and stakeholders looking for measures that can drive economic growth, improve market sentiment and foster a conducive environment for investments. A report.
Market experts anticipate potential tweaks in the income tax slabs or increased exemptions, which can boost disposable income and consumption. They are also expecting reduction or rationalization in corporate tax rate that could positively impact corporate profitability and investment sentiment. Market expert Purv Shah says that the market is expecting a cut or removal of capital gains tax.
Markets have always been looking for a cut in this, either a cut or in fact a removal of long-term capital gains completely, and that would lead to markets to rejoice.
Investors also say that increased allocation to infrastructure and development projects, including roads, railways, ports and urban development, is expected. This can spur economic activity and benefit sectors like construction, cement and steel.
Markets are also looking for infrastructure and developmental spend in the budget. It's always been on the increasing side, and I think an increase in infrastructure and developmental spend will also, this year in the budget also would be there.
Initiatives under production, linked incentive, that is PLI scheme, or other measures to boost the manufacturing sector is also expected. Policies promoting renewable energy, electric vehicles and sustainability are expected, aligning with global environmental goals and fostering new growth sectors. Investors will closely watch the announcements for their immediate and long-term impact on various sectors, and any positive news in budget will lead the markets to rise higher. Shama Mishra's report for DD India.
On to the U.S. presidential race now. Vice President Kamala Harris now seeks quick endorsements and money as Democrats press the reset button on their campaign following President Joe Biden's withdrawal from the race. My colleague Caroline Malone is in Washington, D.C. She gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Caroline, so now stage is set for an entirely different U.S. presidential election, right?
Well, that's right, Tanvi. Unprecedented times. Here in the US, Vice President Kamala Harris has secured a steady stream of endorsements to be the Democrats' new presidential nominee after Joe Biden backed her shortly after he dropped out. Well, Harris is due to speak at the White House in about an hour and a half from now. Campaign officials and allies have already made hundreds of calls on her behalf. They're urging delegates to attend next month's Democratic Party convention and support Harris's nomination against Republicans nominee Donald Trump. As of now, Harris is saying that she intends to earn and win the nomination. Harris has raised $50 million for her presidential campaign in less than a day. Meanwhile, Biden will stay on as the president until January and is expected to address the nation this week. Well, President Biden, in his endorsement of Harris, said he will now focus entirely on fulfilling his duties as president for the remainder of the term. Among other things on the agenda is a meeting with visiting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who flies to the US on Monday. Netanyahu has said he would thank Biden for all he's done for Israel throughout his career and discuss with him issues such as securing the release of Israeli hostages in Gaza, defeating Hamas and confronting Iran and its proxies in the region. A meeting with Biden is tentatively planned for Tuesday if the 81-year-old Biden has recovered from COVID-19. Netanyahu is scheduled to address US Congress on Wednesday.
I will tell my friends on both sides of the aisle that regardless who the American people choose as their next president, Israel remains America's indispensable and strong ally in the Middle East. I plan to see President Biden. There will also be an opportunity to discuss with him how to advance in the critical months ahead the goals that are important for both our countries. Achieving the release of all our hostages, defeating Hamas, confronting the terror axis of Iran and its proxies, and ensuring that all Israel citizens return safely to their homes in the north and in the south.
Well, Nick Harper joins us now live from Washington for more on all of this. So, Nick, let's start with Vice President Harris's bid. How is that coming together, and what can we expect from her speaking at the White House in an hour and a half from now?
Yeah, Caroline, this is the first full day of Kamala Harris campaigning to try and become the Democratic Party's nominee. And I think she has two main challenges ahead: unifying the party, but also fending off challengers. Now, at this stage, she has had a whole raft of very high-profile endorsements, and we haven't yet seen a challenger come forward to say that they will be trying to take that nominee status away from her. We have heard in the last hour or so the West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. He used to be a Democrat, became an independent, suggested yesterday that he might re-register as a Democrat to challenge Harris. He has said definitively that he does not plan to do that. You mentioned the fundraising, about $50 million raised during the course of Sunday. She spent 10 hours on the phone speaking to lawmakers, to donors, to governors, to people that she might potentially choose as her vice presidential pick if she becomes the nominee. There does seem to be this building enthusiasm and momentum around her fledgling campaign at the moment. But you're right, in about an hour and a half's time from now, slightly less, she is due to speak at the White House. Now, this was a pre-planned event. We're told that she will be delivering remarks at an event that celebrates the National Collegiate Athletic Association's championship teams. So she will be there with sports teams, but of course it'll be closely watched because this will be the first time that we could hear from her publicly on her presidential ambitions. And I think it will strike a startlingly different contrast with President Joe Biden. Here we will have Kamala Harris on the south lawn of the White House, while Joe Biden remains behind closed doors, not seen by the public, still self-isolating as a result of COVID-19 at his home in Delaware.
Well, you mentioned Biden's COVID-19 illness. He's got a planned meeting, though, with the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu on Tuesday. What can we expect from that if it goes ahead?
That's right. That meeting was meant to take place later on today, but it was pushed back due to his COVID-19 diagnosis. In theory, it is still happening. Netanyahu has come to the US for this meeting and then for an address to both the House and the Senate on Wednesday. Now, normally we would see the President and the Prime Minister together in the Oval Office. They would make a few remarks. The press would be allowed inside before they got on with their meeting proper. It's all pretty standard when you have a head of state coming here to the US to be entertained by the President. But this will be very, very different because it will be, in theory, the first time that we get to see Joe Biden in almost a week since he self-isolated on Wednesday, and also the first public remarks from him since that bombshell statement on Sunday that he was dropping his re-election bid. He may make some remarks, but he's also promised that he will address the nation on the matter of his re-election dropping later this week. So they may decide to change the format. They may not have that Oval Office remarks with the press involved. Or it may be that they just focus on the business of the Middle East. Many unknowns, but it will be fascinating to watch and one that will undoubtedly be scrutinised, as we could be seeing Biden there for the first time in almost a week.
Thank you, Nick. That was Nick Harper reporting live from Washington. Well, the Israeli military on Monday called on Gazans to clear out of eastern parts of the city of Khan Yunis, saying it was preparing to forcefully operate against renewed rocket fire and militant activity from the area, which it claimed to be a humanitarian zone. The military also said that it was adjusting the borders of a humanitarian zone to keep civilian populations away from areas of combat. Israel says the attacks were aimed at armed militants, including some top Hamas military commanders. Well, moving on to the European Union, where foreign ministers met in Brussels on Monday to evaluate how to respond to trips by Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban to Russia and China, and his country's positioning over the EU's role in Ukraine. Hungary took over the sixth-month rotating presidency of the bloc in July, and almost immediately he went to Moscow and Beijing in what Orban has described as a peace mission, despite none of the EU partners being aware or mandating him to do so. He also left a NATO summit early to meet former US President Donald Trump. Orban's foreign minister has since questioned the EU's role in Ukraine. Well, Orban, who has the warmest relations of any EU leader with the Russian leader Putin, has also repeatedly held up decisions for military aid being sent to Ukraine. Well, Russia's Black Sea oil refinery was damaged in a Ukrainian drone attack overnight. Ukraine has been systematically targeting Russian energy infrastructure in retaliation for Russia's attacks on Ukraine, and in an attempt to disrupt Russia's economy and its ability to fund what the Kremlin calls its special operation in Ukraine. Well, Russia's defense ministry reported that its air defense system successfully intercepted and destroyed 75 drones launched by Ukraine. The refinery has been subjected to multiple Ukrainian air attacks since the conflict began. Well, according to the latest update, officials confirm a fire resulting from the drone strike on the oil refinery has now been extinguished. Well, with a number of conflicts happening in different parts of the world, a Nigerian artist, Fola David, has created a 1,050 square metre Unity in Diversity artwork, showcasing the country's rich cultural heritage. Well, Davis is seeking a Guinness record for the largest drawing by an individual by attempting to break a previous record of a 629.98 square metre piece by an Indian artist in 2021. Well, that's it from me here in Washington. Back to you in the studio, Tanvi.
A wonderful piece and wonderful inspiration there in that artistic representation. Thank you, Caroline. Caroline Malone joining us all from Washington, D.C. You're watching DD India Global. On to Asia now. Streets appeared calm in Bangladesh's capital Dhaka on Monday, a day after the Supreme Court agreed to scrap most government job quotas that had angered student-led activists and led to deadly protests there. Late on Sunday, protesters gave Bangladesh's government 48 hours to meet a string of new demands, including a public apology from Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina for the violence and the restoration of internet connections that were disrupted during the unrest. But on Monday, most appeared to be obeying a curfew in cities that had seen regular demonstrations after a high court in June reinstated old quotas that had reserved many state jobs for descendants of the freedom fighters and other groups. According to a government notification, a public holiday was declared over the last 2 days and has been extended till Tuesday. China surprised markets by cutting major short and long-term interest rates on Monday, its first such broad move since August last year. The move indicates the intent to boost growth in the world's second-largest economy, just days after a Communist Party leadership meeting. The cuts to the central bank's key short-term policy rate and benchmark bank lending rates came after China reported weaker than expected second quarter economic data last week. Trade tensions are also flaring in the region as global leaders grow increasingly wary of China's export dominance. Following the rate cuts, China's yuan dropped to a near 2-week low of 7.27 per dollar. And next we take a look at what else is making news around the world. In Spain, tens of thousands of locals took to streets in an anti-tourism protest. While the tourism sector plays a key role in generating finances, the price rise has made it difficult for residents to afford the cost of living in city centres. Indigenous communities from around the country gathered in Brazil to participate in the annual Indigenous Games. These games that were held from Friday to Sunday witnessed members from different tribes participate in the event. A group of 1,000 migrants from southern Mexico started their journey towards the U.S. border on Sunday. While migration has gained momentum in the U.S. election as a key agenda for these immigrants, the destination USA continues to be a safer place with better opportunities for them. So you're watching DD India Global. Time now for some sporting action. India are sending 6 archers to the Paris Olympics 2024 who will be taking part in all 5 events. Well, India has never won an Olympic medal in archery. This is only the 3rd time and the first in 12 years that India has clinched both men's and women's team quotas for an Olympics. Experienced archer Deepika Kumari, who has consistently participated in the Olympics since London 2012, is determined to overcome her past disappointments in Paris, while Tarundeep Rai gears up for his 4th Olympic performance. Can they win a medal? We bring you this preview as India cheers for its athletes.
Indian archery team is all geared up for the Paris Olympics. India is fielding a full size of 6 archers, which is the 3rd time that it is hosting a full size squad. In the men's recurve, India will be led by Tarundeep Rai, Dheeraj Bomadevra and Praveen Jadhav, while Deepika Kumari, Bhajan Kaur and Ankita Bhagat will represent India in women's category. India will have a representation across all 5 archery events, including men's individual, women's individual, men's team, women's team and mixed team event. The competition will start with the ranking round from 25th of July, with all the events concluding by 4th of August. Tarundeep Rai is India's most experienced archer who is appearing in his 4th Olympics. He made his debut in Athens 2004, followed by appearances in London 2012 and Tokyo 2020. Experienced archer Deepika has been participating in Olympics since 2012 London Olympics. Deepika participated in the London Olympics with the top ranking. However, she failed to win a medal. Her performance in the Rio Olympics was also not very good as she had to return empty-handed. Deepika also made it to the Tokyo Olympics as the world's #1 archer and was the only female archer from India. She participated in the women's individual recurve and mixed team event with Praveen Jadhav. She became India's first women archer to reach quarterfinals in the Olympics. However, her journey ended in the last 8. At the same time, she couldn't get past the quarterfinal hurdle in the mixed team event also. During Prime Minister Modi's interaction with the players before leaving for Paris, Deepika expressed confidence of putting up her best.
सर बहुत खुशी है और कि ये चौथा ओलंपिक है मेरा और मैं बहुत एक्साइटेड हूँ और ये काफ़ी एक्सपीरियंस है तो मैं उस एक्सपीरियंस को चाहूँगी कि उस एक्सपीरियंस को यूज़ करूँ और उसी जोश और उसी कॉन्फिडेंट के साथ रिप्रेजेंट करूँ और अपना 200% दूँ.
For Maharashtra's Praveen Jadhav, this will be the second Olympic Games. At Tokyo, Jadhav's campaign ended in the second round. Apart from these, Dheeraj Bomadevra will make his Olympic debut this time. Dheeraj had secured the individual men's quota from the Asian qualifier in Bangkok last year. At the same time, Bhajan Kaur, a female archer who qualified for the Olympics for the first time, was successful in securing the individual's women's quota in the archery Olympic qualifier. While Ankita Bhagat has confirmed her ticket for the Paris Olympics by defeating Gabriel Monica of the Philippines in the Olympic qualifier. Prime Minister Modi has also interacted with the players before their departure to Paris, and the team is confident of putting up a strong show. India has a rich history in archery, having first participated in the 1988 Seoul Olympics. In the 1992 Olympics held in Barcelona, Limbaram came close to winning a medal for India, although he did not succeed and missed out on winning a medal. It will be historic if India win a medal in archery. The athletes have been progressing nicely. The men's archers Bomadevra, Tarundeep and Jadhav have secured their personal best scores in the qualifying round for the Paris Olympics. They also stunned world champion South Korea to win team gold at the World Cup Stage 1 in Shanghai in April this year. At the same event, the mixed team featuring Bhagat and Bomadevra won bronze. Bomadevra also won mixed team bronze at World Cup Stage 3 in Antalya, Turkey with Bhajan, while Deepika clinched silver at World Cup Stage 1. The above results show that Indians are in good form, but a lot will depend on how they perform on the day and the way they handle the pressure of the Olympics and medal expectations. Sports Desk, DD India.
And a taste of Indian culture now. Devotees of Hindu Lord Shiva celebrated the first Monday of Shravan month in Nepal's Pashupati temple on Monday. The Shravan or Sawan month marks the onset of monsoon in India and the region. So on the first Monday of Shravan, millions of Shiv devotees visited the Pashupati temple in the Kathmandu valley. Devotees on the occasion fill holy water from rivers in their kalash and carry it to the temple and offer it to the Shivling, or that's the symbolic representation of Lord Shiva. So that's it for this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles. And of course, you can download the DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.